Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. I'm your host, Ross Benjamin. It is Thursday, December the 7th, getting close to Christmas, folks. And I'm here with Mr. Doug Upstone and Mr. Chip Chirimbus, all three of us of gamblersworld.net, which is our sponsor. Before we get to our guest, we will be talking the NFL today, and we'll be giving you some free picks here in games between the Rams and the Ravens, the Vikings and the Raiders, and the Broncos and the Chargers. So before we get to that, though, we'll be talking some NFL betting, college football betting, sports betting in general. And we welcome all your questions and comments in the comment section, even on our archives. And we'll try to get back to you as soon as we possibly could on those. Just a friendly reminder, folks, we are going live tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be myself and Sean Higgs and Jesse Schule. And that'll give you an opportunity to chime in live and get immediate answers. So, again, folks, we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your support. And without further ado, Mr. Doug Upstone of I mistakenly said Doug of Winner's Circle. Excuse me. Boy, oh boy. Gamblersworld.net. Too many freaking names going around. And but he is from DocSports.com, iconic website that's been around for 53 years. And like I always say, longevity speaks volumes. And speaking of longevity, Doug's been doing it about as long as I have, and it's over 20 years now. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing well, Ross, and looking forward to another big weekend here. Got the NFL Week 14. Lots of great action. We're going to talk about, as you mentioned, 3 of those games this upcoming Sunday. So looking forward to that. And hey, you know what? Just looking for another big week with the different things that are going on. And, and then the Army-Navy game will obviously draw some action. And I guess the ticket prices and the people are just fired up in the far northeast. I guess it's like one of the hottest tickets they've ever had at that stadium. So up at where the Patriots play. So and the football in terms of points will probably be similar to what New England will score just in general.
Yeah, the total in that game I think is somewhere around 28, which is par for the course not par for the course. I shouldn't say that. It's extremely low. But the history of the service academies playing each other and going under the total is it's like a 15-1 run to the under, something like that. But in any event, talking about longevity, this gentleman, some of you who are in our age bracket will remember Chip from the Proline Sports shows with Jim Feist and Scotty Spreitzer, who does a podcast with Doug right now, and a couple other of those gentlemen that were on the forefront in the cable industry back then. But Chipper, how are you?
I'm, great here as long as you win the big games because, I do consider myself a big game player, and now the big money's on the line this time of the year. We come off Auburn, our Southeast Conference game of the year, makes us 4-1 on conference calls for game of the year this season, off a 9-1 last year. And so we're looking to a big game this weekend. Would probably be in the NFL because of we only have the big one in the Army-Navy. I'd rather just watch that one without having to get crazy.
That's always been a bucket list item for me to go see Navy and Army play.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you because you seem to have been at about every sporting event of major proportions, but that's one you haven't been to, huh?
No, I've missed that. I really have. And, we've been to Stanley Cups, we've been to the Olympics, and, being single, have the opportunity to answer only to myself. So I'd go, and I've been to the football games and the NCAA championships. It's been really a great ride, but I've missed this out on this for sure. And I'd love to see it. And I'd love to see the Super Bowl this year. So anyone out there with a little juice, let me know, and I'll be walking in with you.
Well, keep winning like you are, and you'll be able to get your own money to go there. So in any event, Chip is number 2 over the last 60 days over at our website, gamblersworld.net, where you'll find 10 of the finest handicappers in the country, including us too. And also keep in mind, folks, we guarantee all our picks. So all single game, multi-game daily packages and subscription plans of 30 days or fewer. If you don't win, you don't make a profit, we will credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. Guys, a lot of bad weather games this week. And, Doug, I looked at your game and I was ready to pull the trigger on the Rams earlier this week. And I said, let me check the weather. And the weather, man, torrid rain conditions in Baltimore is predicted this week. We're looking at 97% rain and 17-mile-an-hour winds throughout that contest, Doug. And I'll let you go right into your pick on this game because I'm interested to hear it. The Rams and the Ravens. The Ravens right now are a 7.5-point home favorite. The total is 40, and we saw a drop from the original number considerably, folks. And keep that in mind that this is not a money move. It may be a little bit of money, but to see a total in the NFL move this much without anybody, any major personnel being out of each lineup is a rarity unless it's weather affected. And this certainly seems to be the case, Doug.
Yeah, it sure does. And so from that standpoint, the other thing that's so deceiving now as compared to years ago too about big line moves on totals is the lines now. The official beginning line is the look ahead line, which is primarily put out, the Thursday or Friday before the prior week's game. And so you get a completely different outlook as opposed to coming up with a line on a Sunday night, which is a more realistic line, at least in my opinion, from that standpoint. But, like you, Ross, I really did want to make a case here for the Rams, especially when it went from 7 to 7.5. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They've covered their last 2, and they're tied with the Vikings, Packers, and Seahawks, I believe, at 6-6. So they're right in the wild card hunt. All of a sudden, Matthew Stafford is red hot. 7 touchdowns and just 1 pick in the last 2 weeks, and taking full advantage of both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams coming back at running back has also been a big boost for this team. He's a very good running back. He's off the IL, and he's rushed for over 230 yards in his last 2 games and caught 9 passes. The Rams have held the opposing teams to just 17.2 points per game in their last 4 contests, and Lamar Jackson's only 1-8 as a favorite of more than a touchdown in this one. Yet, here we go. Baltimore coming off a bye. Sure, John Harbaugh isn't a great coach off a bye at 9-8 against the spread, but the Ravens, at least in my opinion, are arguably the best team in the AFC. And make no mistake, they want the top seed. They want it to come through Baltimore in order to get Kansas City off what they've been doing the last several years. They're number 7 in points scored with a very balanced offense, number 1 in points allowed. Baltimore, I think, is going to bring a lot of pressure to Stafford, especially in obvious pass situations, to make him get rid of the ball quickly. And he will. So he will throw a few balls up for grabs here. And the other thing, too, Baltimore, when you ask me always at the end of the show about slamming the like button, well, that's what Baltimore does. And they don't like the other team. They just slam them, from that standpoint. So this team really comes and likes to hit. And if you take away their recent loss to Cleveland, in which they had, I believe, was a 14-point lead or maybe 13-point lead. If they hadn't lost that game, they'd be on streaks of 7-0 straight up and 6-1 against the spread. So in this one, I'm just looking at this. I'm looking at the Rams in their win streak. They beat a slumping Seattle team. They beat a bad Arizona team and a Cleveland team without an NFL quarterback. 7.5 is a lot of points to give. I agree with that on an NFL game, especially against a team that's hot. But the Rams are 0-7 recently against teams coming off a bye, and that includes twice losing this year. So I'm going to go with Baltimore minus a 7.5, and hopefully I can bring it home.
All right, Baltimore minus 7.5 against the Rams. Doug, I got off of that game of looking to use the Rams, at least for the time being. Because the weather conditions. And, Chip, I look at the weather conditions here, and I just mentioned 97% chance of rain throughout the contest, not just at kickoff, not starting in the second quarter, but they're predicting rain throughout the contest, 17-mile-an-hour winds. Again, rain doesn't bother me, Chip, as much as the winds. Because it almost takes away a team's passing game for 2 quarters. And then it gets down to who's got the better run game. And to me, the Ravens are far the superior team in the run game. I know the Rams have improved a little bit over the last 2 games in that area. But, the more consistent running game seems to be the Ravens. But how do you look at situations like this, Chip?
And I saw this game coming in. I thought the Rams on a 3-game streak, like Doug mentioned, getting 7.5 points wasn't a difficult play. I thought the harder play was the Ravens, and here they are coming off a bye, which I like. And I think they can be at any given moment the best team in the NFL, or comparative to the Niners anyway. But did we really expect the Rams to be here at this time? I mean, I think for the most part, no one expected them to have a chance to win their 7th game at this point in the season. And so that's a bit of a surprise. Maybe they'll level out a little bit, but it's got to all be out of the quarterback position with them, because I don't see much else. And I think the Ravens are going to be able to handle it. I don't know if they're going to be able to cover. I mean, it's a big number. It scares me. But my first instinct was that it was way high, and that they're telling you the Rams are going to get their comeuppance this week.
Yeah. The bottom line is if it was fair weather conditions for me, I'd be on the Rams. But like I said, you look at Baltimore's run game, and they've put up impressive numbers all year in the run game, and you can't disregard the fact they have the most mobile quarterback in all of the NFL. I don't think anybody would argue that. The Rams, 2 nice games on the ground, the last 2, but this Baltimore defense is pretty darn good too. So, this is a game that I'm perplexed with, and I'm probably going to stay away for all the reasons that I just confused the hell out of you with. So, in any event, all right, let's look at Chipper's game, and he's going to be talking the Raiders and the Vikings, and game will be played in Las Vegas. And no, there's not going to be any weather conditions to deal with there. Nope. Number 1, it's in Las Vegas, and number 2, it's indoors. And right now, the Vikings are a 3-point favorite on the road. The total 40.5. Boy, Joshua Dobbs has looked after coming out of the gate and looking like he was rejuvenating the Vikings with their daubers down after losing Cousins at quarterback. But the last 2 games, he has been anything but. He's been absolutely terrible, to put it quite simply, Chip.
Right. Well, I'll hit on that before it's over. But, I'm looking to sneak into this game. I'll tell you that to start off with. But Raiders have dropped 2 because they played 2 really good football teams, real football teams in the NFL, Kansas City and Miami. And they won 2 games against the 2 most incompetent offenses in the history of the game, the Jets and the Giants this season. So, evaluating their level and how good they are, Pierce said this week, and had the team rallying and being so close to the situation here, he said to the players, talk is cheap. He says, you guys can say all you want. You got to do it on the field. And there was like a nod of the heads, and I guess the Raiders understand. But what are you going to do with the 29th offense, averaging only 285 yards, 84 yards, with a rookie quarterback? So I think even though it's indoors, they're going to try and keep it conservative, being, usually the weather might affect the total. We're not worried about the weather here. We're worried about these teams being able to move the ball. Their defense, the Raiders, the bottom third, it's at 21, allows 340 for a game. And when you go to the Vikings, they're getting Jefferson back this week. Okay, Justin's their best receiver, but here we have Dobbs, like you said. He went from 100 rating the first 2 games to 80 to 54 last time out, and there seems to be a trend which is not good. So I don't see a lot of scoring come out of there. The adjustments that the defenses have made to Dobbs are bigger than he's able to make and call, I guess, because he still is inexperienced, reading defenses and making the calls. So the offense for the Vikings, they can scare you once in a while, and, they're 10th. Their defense is 13th, so that their strong defense is better, much better than the Raiders' offense. And in this period, to say the last, the last 4 games when Dobbs is there, he has 7 TD passes and 5 interceptions, and the Raiders have 5 interceptions as well, but only 3 TD passes. I think this is a low-scoring game. I think they keep it under, and because both offenses are kind of inept, with Dobbs doing what he's doing lately with the Vikings. The Vikings are 5-0-1 on the road, by the way, against the points. So I was a little leery about taking them, thinking the Raiders might be due to win a home team, and they're at they might have a shot here. But I think the total is the way to go. I just think these offenses, the Raider offense isn't very good at all. And when you got what Dobbs has been doing of late, I'm going to play under.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. The Vikings and Raiders under the total of 40.5 is a pick from Chip Chirimbus. You look at the Raiders, let's see here, 4-1 to the under in their last 5, 8-2 to the under in their last 10. Yep. So they've been playing low scoring affairs. Their offense, like Chip alluded to, 17, 13, and 16 points scored in their last three. You're looking at 17 points or fewer in their last three, 5 of their last 6, and 7 of their last 9. So, I mean, again, offensive ineptness. And Doug, the Vikings were sailing along. They were on a nice 5-0 straight up an ATS run. Then they played Denver. Looked like they had that game, but they gave it away. Lost 21-20, and they covered. But then they really laid an egg last week against the Chicago Bears at home, losing that game 12-10. And what concerns me with Minnesota's is Joshua Dobbs right now. I mean, the Vikings in their last 2 games, which they lost, are a -5 turnover differential, and they've turned the ball over 7 times. What's your take?
Yeah, and this, well, it starts and pretty much ends with Joshua Dobbs against Aiden O'Connell. I mean, if you go through and way the season is played out with so many top line quarterbacks getting injured, I mean, you go through and if you write down the quarterback matchups, I mean, there's at least half the schedule that have what you would consider laughable, quarterback matchups, and that's what this one is, from that standpoint. So, Vikings, have played on the road for their last 5 games, have gone under 41. I know it's 40.5, but they've gone under 41, so we're right there with that. Vikings, I think, are second in the NFL in allowing offensive touchdowns in weeks 6 through 12. Most recently, Raiders, they don't score much from that standpoint. These 2 teams right now are a combined 18-6 under. So there's no reason to even consider anything else to me from that standpoint is to go with the under and agree with both of you gentlemen. And as a bonus pick, I would look at Josh Jacobs for over carries because he's the one player that they have that can continue to do something in terms of how they want to run offense. So watch for his total on that one with total carries and look to play the over on it.
Doug, I think you're right. I think the Raiders are going to look to run the ball. They're 31st in rushing after having Jacobs lead the league last year. And I think Pierce is looking for them to get back to basics and run the ball and not put so much pressure on O'Connell. Yep. So, it's another reason I was looking for the game to stay under. And hopefully the 31st ranked rushing game can get like some semblance of where they were last year.
Well, here you go, Doug. I know you like this kind of stuff like me. Anytime you have a team like Minnesota that's coming off a home loss, they're coming off that loss against the Bears, and they're facing an opponent like the Raiders coming off a home loss by 10 or more, which they are, 37-9 to the under since 2019. So that's 80%, Chip, 80.4%. So that puts a little bit of salt into that pick. And before I get to my pick, which is going to be on the Broncos and the Chargers, Doug, fill the folks in a little bit of how you've been doing of late and what's going on at Doc Sports that you could foresee for the coming weekend.
I'm just looking into the future, and I see some things on the horizon, Ross, for sure on that one. So NFL recently won 7 of the last 11 weeks in the NFL. NFL best bets, 6 units or higher. We go 6, 7, and 8. 8's only a game of the year. So 6, 7, and 8. I've hit 75% of these since week 3 in the NFL. So on a great run there. College basketball, the last 4 days after a slow start, 4 straight winning days in college basketball. That has gone well, hitting almost 60% of recent NHL plays across the board. So a lot of good stuff going this week, Ross. And hey, we got the bowl season coming up. And so looking forward to going on that. I've won 4 of the last 5 years in the bowl season, looking to make it 5 out of 6 and hit some best bets so I can keep up with Chip.
Yeah. Good luck with that. I've been trying to do that for years, man. I'm getting tired trying to chase him. Anyway, by the way, Doug, Lamar Jackson 17-1 straight up as a starting quarterback when facing teams from the NFC. Just a note.
I forgot about that. Yep, you're right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So, Chipper, you got a lot to talk about. I know you do, and you'll have things lined up for the weekend like you always do. And fill the folks in a little bit about what's going on with Chip Chirimbus and why they should spend their hard-earned money on Chip Chirimbus over at gamblersworld.net.
Because Chip wins. have discipline and consistency. I mean, I don't take shots, and you just sit there and try to give your best. And I think in the long run, you'll make money if you have the discipline, like I was saying. And now is our time of the year, Ross. You and I, we've talked about this before, because the big money and the big games are on the line, and that's when we're able to differentiate and put things together. So I'm just looking forward to this bowl season, like Doug said, and it comes so fast and it goes so fast. I think there's 42 games before the championship game, and we've only going to have like 19 days, and they're just rapid fire. And it's a very hectic time for us because we're posting at 6:30 in the morning, and we have to get lines from the night. And we're still doing basketball, both NBA and in college. And by the way, the NBA, another 2-0 night last night. We're going today to the NBA in-game tournament. I'll be there watching LeBron. I got to see him one more time before he calls it.
That's right. It's in Vegas. Yeah.
So I got tickets taking Giovanni. We're going to go. We went to the Washington Oregon game the other night, and it was absolutely fabulous. And I'll tell you something. Washington was so well prepared in that game. They had Bo Nix, and that Oregon offense just totally stifled for virtually the first half. And their offensive line, like I said a couple of weeks ago, it may be the best in the country. They never got near Penix. And he was throwing 30, 40-yard passes downfield and hitting guys in stride, which was a lot different than the offense you saw from the Ducks, where it was just like trying to hit a 6 or 7-yard pass with a receiver. So the preparedness, shall I say, of the Huskies really outdid the Ducks, and I won't be surprised if you see more of them as we go along.
Yeah, let's keep things in perspective. Though they only won by 3,
But when I said this earlier to you that I thought their offensive line was fantastic in the game against Utah, which they played close, and to see it, to just watch them. I mean, they were never threatened. Penix was never threatened.
Yeah, and if you watched our show when we covered this game, Mr. Upstone was on Washington +9 at that time. So he picked an outright winner. Unfortunately for me, that was my big play that week, and I lost with Oregon. And I had been tooting their horn that I thought they were going to win the national championship. And hey, you know what? Sometimes I'm wrong. It happens. But Chip, going back to his NBA, number one at the site. In the NBA right now with a 36-22 record, good for 62%, and $100 a unit players right now with Chip, $4,576 profit in the NBA. So not doing too bad myself as well. In the NBA. Go ahead, Chip. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and that's with an 0-3 Sunday and an 0-2 Sunday the last 2 weeks thrown in. And I should learn not to play NBA big games when you're going head to head with the NFL. So. Because there's just so many good wagers out there in the day.
Yeah, and the betting pool is down a lot on a Sunday when they're going head to head with the NFL. So it's hard to discern smart money from public money when that occurs. You could find me at gamblersworld.net too, folks. And I say I've been chasing Chip for years, and that's because he's been such a great handicapper for over the long haul. Me and Doug always respect guys that have been in the business longer than us and done it successfully. But that doesn't mean we can't be competitive. I'm number one at the site over at gamblersworld.net since its inception. Record of 206 and 157. My $100 a unit players up $9,231. Now, if you bet $1,000 a game with me, and you've done so since August the 4th, you're up over $43,000, folks. And that's all documented over at gamblersworld.net, as well as at Sports Capping, that does a great job of documenting our selections. As a matter of fact, over that course of time, 188 and 132 in all sports since August the 4th, 59%. Again, some people will scoff at 59%, but I know Chip and Doug know over that course of time, over 4 months with that many plays, that's not a fluke. So college football since December 2nd of last year, 70 and 48, 59%. My college basketball right now on a 38 and 25 run, good for 60%. NFL since week 2, 44 and 30, 59%. So again, folks, a lot of good stuff. NBA sides, red hot, 48 and 20. Since April of this year, going back to last season, it's good for 71%. I think probably missed something, but that's a lot of good stuff, and it's a real good reason why you should invest with me over at gamblersworld.net, with Chip over at gamblersworld.net. You heard Doug's record in his hot streaks, so you could invest with him over at DocSports.com. This is what we do for a living, folks. These free picks are nice. We like to win them all, but it's business 101. We're not giving our good stuff away for free for the most part. All right, let me look at my game real quickly here, and we can get to you guys, and we'll close shop. It is the game between the Denver Broncos and the LA Chargers. The game will be played at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. And the Chargers are anywhere from a 2.5 to 3 point favorite in this game. The total's 44, and that's going to be my area of concentration. The Chargers off a 6-0 road win at New England. Talk about an exciting game. Yeah, okay. Under Brandon Staley, the Chargers are now 12-1 to the under when coming off a win by 6 or less, like they are this week. And the Chargers also 3-0 to the under in their last 3 and 8-1 to the under in the last 9. You know, guys, that surprised me a little bit because when you're talking about one of the better quarterbacks in football still, Justin Herbert, and pretty good skill position players on offense, that surprised me. There's been that many low-scoring games. And they're also 4-0 to the under in the last 4 when the total's been 47.5 or less, which those games averaged a combined just 31.3 points scored per game. Denver, on the other hand, 6-0 to the under in their last 6 games this year when there's been a total of 38 or greater. And that's the case here with the total being at 44. And those 4 games average a combined 37 points per game. Now, Denver's been playing real good of late, right? They're coming off a loss, which snapped a 5-game win streak. But the bottom line is their offense still isn't doing a lot, guys. 300 yards or less in each of their last 5 games in total offense. And finally, the Denver Broncos, since 2021, they're 11-4 to the under as a road underdog. I'm going to go Denver and the Chargers under 44 here, guys. I see a real low-scoring game. But I won't get greedy. 44 is a nice number, and I think there's some betting value there on going under the total. Chipper?
Well, I have to see it going the same way. I mean, I happen to like a side in this game particularly, so I'm not going to make a comment on that. But you know, I don't know, how do you evaluate the Chargers defense against the Patriots offense and the kind of conditions they played under? It should be nice in LA, but the Chargers has been an overall disappointment to everyone at every turn. I mean, it's just they're just playing. It's like the Hoyle's Book of Rules, and the rules say you take them as a dog on the road, and you take against them as home as a favorite. Very small favorite here, very little room against the Broncos, who got their comeuppance last week. I mean, they had a chance to win the game in the final moments, but hey, my man Russell Wilson did his thing, and one of my only winners Sunday was the Houston Texans.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, kept it Sunday night, which we've been winning.
Yeah. All right. So there you have it. There's Chip's take on the game. And Doug, divisional battle, pretty much an elimination game for both teams. I guess more so for the Chargers, obviously 5-7. I mean, look, the Chargers have to win out, Doug, right? To have any, and that doesn't assure them anything, but you can't win out unless you win this one first, right? So
that's always how it works. Yes, it's always the it's like in Major League Baseball. You can't go undefeated unless you win the first game, right? It's kind of the same
there
thing.
You go. Yeah.
So so I'll agree with you though. I like the under as well from that standpoint. But looking at Denver's luck ran out on turnovers. That's what they had been living off of. As you mentioned, their offense hasn't been great, and really their defense hasn't been great in terms of yards allowed. But they were feeding off the turnovers. So that changed last week. But you look at the Chargers here, boy, they have 5 wins, and 4 of those wins have come against Bailey Zappi, Zach Wilson, Tyson Padgett, and Aiden O'Connell. Okay, not exactly a Hall of Fame list of quarterbacks. Okay, and not even a good backup list of quarterbacks, to be perfectly frank with this year. So Chargers, I'm looking at them. Their offense has not been good just overall. Keenan Allen has been getting beat up almost every game he's come out for some amount of time. You can see he's lost a little bit from the standpoint of zest, okay, to running patterns and such. Austin Eckler has been slowed down yet again here. I think there's just more juice with Denver just overall in terms of the team and what they're playing for. So I'll take the points with them. I think their situation is a much better situation with the Chargers is right now.
Yeah, and again, I can't help but say I don't know how Staley still has his job. I really don't. We've talked about this on numerous occasions, Chip, and
Well,
this is a team we both acknowledge that has plenty of talent.
some owners are more concerned with the bottom line and paying only one coach at a time, and that may be the situation here because they're this decision they made, they're going to live with it, and winning isn't as important to all of these guys as the bottom line. Some people want to win; they have that desire for it, and they'll spend everything they can and do whatever they can. Others are just looking to make sure that they have a nice, healthy lifestyle, shall I say?
Yes, and Spanos is if you know anything about his father, okay, that's all you need to know, okay, and him even moving from the Chargers to going up to Los Angeles. I mean, this what was that decision based on? It was based on money.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So it's just part of the culture of that franchise now, and the days of them wanting to win pretty much since Dan Fouts has left. With rare exception, you just haven't seen a lot of interest in really wanting to win from this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, Chip's good friends with Mr. Spamos, or Spanos.
We
Yeah,
we have lamb every Easter together.
Okay,
yes,
nice.
and you know what happened? You know why they stopped talking? Chip asked him to borrow $50, and he wouldn't give it to him. In any event, Doug, there's a like button.
What's it?
Right, there's a like button right underneath. Tell the folks what you think they should do with it on our behalf.
As always, okay, with the opinions of not only the three of us on this show, but all the other guys that are here on the Winner's Circle, you should just punch that like button because we are putting in effort. We're punching our way to try and get some victories. So you do the same and hit that like button.
Yeah, don't hit it twice like Chip told you to do the one time.
No,
because if you hit it twice,
once is
it
more
doesn't.
than enough.
Gotta love Chipper. Anyway, yes, folks. Go ahead.
Well, I am the Antichrist. I look to go against everything that's normal.
In any event, yes, folks, we ask you to kindly please hit that like button. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put into giving you a quality podcast 6 times a week. And also, it's just a nice thing to make us happy. And it doesn't take much to make us happy these days. So, again, folks, we'll be back on tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Jesse Schule and Sean Higgs will be joining me. Live show for all you texting tough guys and brave ones when you come out with these comments and ridicule us on some of the archives of our show. Look, we don't care about that. Just chime in live, so we can answer you right back. And for the most part, all of our comments are pretty good. But there's always those chosen few that just find fault in anything we do, and that's okay. It's part of the territory. Until the next time, we'd like to wish you a great weekend. For Doug Upstone, Chip Chirimbus, and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.